All right, welcome back to Lively Conversations. I'm your host, Renat Stralofer, and I have with me today Nathaniel Solace. Welcome to Lively Conversations, Nathaniel.
Hello, thanks for having me. So happy to be here.
I'm going to read out your bio, which says here that Nathaniel Solace is the creator of Ritual Reboot, a multifaceted coach, advisor, and facilitator. He specializes in helping entrepreneurs achieve their peak potential through mind-body training, lifestyle, and leadership strategies. Nathaniel's broad skill set includes coaching and consulting in areas such as design, productivity, stress management, self-mastery, performance enhancement, and personal empowerment. His transformative videos and training materials have reached millions worldwide, reflecting his dedication to helping individuals develop new habits, routines, and self-esteem. That's a really, really good bio, by the way, Nathaniel.
Thank you.
So I want to dive in. I want to talk about how your work, you mentioned in your bio, it involves coaching and advising entrepreneurs. Now, I am an entrepreneur, so this is very fascinating for me. But how do you help entrepreneurs reach peak levels of achievement, fulfillment? And can you share maybe like a pivotal moment of your experience and your journey, your rite of passage that has led to this path of coaching and mentoring?
Yeah, that's a great question. I like how you set me up with that. I think one of the ways that I help people the most that ties well with my story has to do with your vision. Because I think all humans in some way, shape, or form want things, desire things, just come up with ideas. And then the ratio of how many of those ideas turn into something you go and actually do is massive. So like making that ratio smaller is part of the goal. And we were talking just before this call, like all these different things that we're into and kind of our bigger worldview, which is we're willing to take a lot on and we want to actually like make things better and do something about it. I've just had that impulse since I was really in high school and was introduced to a lot of bad design issues in the world, like a lot of bad management, you could say, and wondering what we can do about it. And I was so steadfast on my vision that I got fired from all the jobs I was trying to have while I'm trying to like build this, initially it was like a business and just starting a YouTube channel and wanting to share information. I didn't know how I was going to make it a business yet, but I stuck with the vision. I knew that if I kept sharing stuff that was valuable for me, for other people, that at some point the value would come back to me. So, a lot of the entrepreneurs that come to work with me, I work with, people who are just getting started, but also people who kind of have the business stuff figured out. They like have the money, they have things going on, but they realize they had to shut off all these different aspects of themselves in order to get the $1,000,000 or whatever it is. Right. So those people need to step into their vision as well, too, because we can just get caught up in what we're doing and not bringing it back to ourselves. Right. So much of this work, entrepreneurs, the value is how fast they can go and how much they can generate. But if that doesn't come with like its own process of integration, right, it's like you're just really quickly with a lot of energy building your own demise ultimately. When you can, you build $1,000,000 business on a bunch of bad habits, that hurts really bad when the bill comes due. So ideally, I'm either helping people who are just getting started kind of avoid a lot of mistakes that I've made or that my clients make, or people who have, further along in their journey and need to come back and revisit things, which is usually starts with some sort of audit, basically. So like going through your calendar, how you actually manage your time, like actually seeing what people are doing. And those things that they're doing, how are they approaching those things? How are they responding to those things? It's like infinite details with each person, but everyone really has so much more control than we kind of let ourselves experience. Most people are kind of going on this autopilot, but then the real, hack in a sense, or like the trick is how do you design it in a way so that the autopilot you're running is the one you want, right? You can on autopilot be a very conscious, productive, healthy, considerate, balanced person, right? But most people just kind of run this, sleepy, avoidant, dismissive, ignorant autopilot. And so I like to help people figure that out too.
Yes, I find myself on autopilot at times, and then I have to literally come back into my body. And that's sort of been
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
process for me. It's like, oh, that's a real somatic way to feel into my body. Instead of saying, like, how do
Hmm.
you feel? And people say, oh, I feel happy or curious. It's like, well, no, how does that feel in the body?
Hmm.
And so coming back to understanding what makes me sweat, what makes me shake, what makes me
Hmm.
my stomach rumble, like all of those somatic experiences of identifying what the body is communicating to me at any given time has been
Yeah.
some of the most important work as an entrepreneur. So I know we're going to get into
Yeah.
a lot of that today, but I want to ask you about sort of how, maybe just a little bit, give us a bit of a backstory about Ritual Reboot in particular, because we'd love to
Hmm.
know more about that and how you got into it.
Yeah. So Ritual Reboot ultimately started from a 100-day experiment that I did. I think it was in 2015, 2016. And at this point, I'm living in LA. I've been running my, business for, gosh, almost 6 or 7 years at this point, and I'm kind of in my own version of an autopilot. So I got very curious about what was possible, and I gave up basically every type of stimulant, coffee, cannabis, alcohol, pornography, masturbation, um, even like tea or chocolate or like just anything that was too. And I wasn't watching TV shows or movies or any of that kind of stuff for 100 days. And my life, I mean, I literally made 100 grand in the 100 days. I made all these new relationships. I cried almost every day just out of pure like joy and like just feeling that much better. My sleep got infinitely better. I had an Aura ring tracking that the whole time, and just every single facet of my life got better. And it was really powerful because I didn't have any huge issue. I wasn't some like stoner. I didn't drink every day. I barely even drank at all, but even like I didn't need coffee multiple times throughout the day. So I just thought, oh, it's not that bad. I just like have a coffee every day. I basically have to have it, right? And that it was profound to realize that even just taking away the subtlety of that just made me operate like a superhuman, at least compared to what I was used to. And then I start to look around. It's like, oh, it's not like, oh, I finally just caught up with everybody else. Like I was doing something superhuman. The more I like looked into it, and I'm talking to my friends, and people are saying that's absolutely insane that you did that, and started to realize how many of my friends and other entrepreneurs and other clients had all these things that I would essentially call the unmentionables that actually were the sort of wedge or that, that one block. And started to realize a lot of my clients wouldn't tell me that they actually drink every night still. Like we'd work on all these other things, but they wouldn't tell me that one little thing. Right. So I eventually created Ritual Reboot. Initially, the first round was like a small group program to bring in about a dozen people who wanted to basically have a respectable way to handle the unmentionables. Right. So for some people, it's a pornography or masturbation addiction or sex addiction or Tinder and swiping and dating, apps and just the pursuit of sex. Or some people, it's carbs and sugar and candies and foods they don't need to be eating, and nothing wrong with carbs or sugar, but there's like, ways to do it that, are functional and ways that aren't. So just letting people kind of have that process. That first round went so phenomenally well. What I realized from that first round, even though everyone came in with their different things, every single person had a phone screen content addiction. I'm saying the term addiction like literally. I'm not a doctor or can diagnose that kind of thing, but anybody listening to this, when I even say that, it's about how you feel about that word to yourself. So if you're catching yourself go, oh, definitely not me, I'm not addicted or anything like that, just double check. But that's essentially where it started. And then over the years, we've been running the program for almost almost 5 years, maybe now. And we turned it into essentially like an evergreen program. So anybody anywhere in the world, whenever they want, can come, join the group. They can get access to a physical workbook and all these cool videos. And it walks you through this whole process of doing basically my 100-day experiment and taking all the principles of what worked out of that and doing it over 7 days. And you give yourself basically this week reboot, and it's absolutely profound. And what's great about it too is you can take those same principles and just do it for the rest of today. Let's say you're listening to this and it's 2 p.m. once you know this stuff, you're like, man, what would be the best way to approach the rest of just today? And people don't tend to realize how well you can set yourself up to have one of the best days you've had in a long time tomorrow, just by knowing like how to go to sleep tonight, or how you actually, set yourself up for these different things. So big part of the intention I've started to realize is that it's actually this permission slip to introduce people to a certain paradigm, but really reminding them of like the paradigm we used to live in, like just 12 years ago, 15 years ago, when we didn't have these infinite feeds and, all the stuff to do. It's like people still did like read books at night to candlelight, and liked that. And now people literally can't do it. They're too uncomfortable to sit there and read a book, right? Because they've just been wound up on all this fast-paced stuff all day. So that's what we do with Ritual Reboot, is try to give people that tangible reboot, and also introduce people to how severe the problem might be, regarding where you get your stimulation or distraction from. And so for a lot of people, it's a really big wake-up call. But what's also great is we've never had someone come through who didn't improve whatever they needed to improve in there. So it's been a really great experience.
Oh, that's so fascinating, because I love personally the tension of opposites. And I think that when I get to explore the tension of opposites, that's really some of my most important work that I get to do. So I feel like what you're exploring is like you're going from something that's quite extreme from another thing that is also quite extreme, and trying to find that kind of sweet spot wherever that is for the person. And I think that's some of the that's really incredibly potent work right there. I know that you talk about the dopamine detox, and this is something that when I spoke to my team and I said, oh, I'm going to be interviewing Nathaniel Solace on dopamine detox, and this was such a buzz in the office, because it is such a craving these days. It's almost like you talk about addiction. The addiction is the dopamine, right? So it's like this thing that you're feeding on. And I'd love for you to explain it in simple terms for our audience. What is a dopamine detox, especially in this highly stimulated world that we live in?
Yeah, you can correlate it almost directly with any sort of tolerance detox, right? So if you drink a lot or take certain drugs, or people are more familiar, or you're eating really sugary foods all the time, when you take a break, you notice. And or caffeine is a better example, probably. You take a day off caffeine, you can feel the difference in your body, right? And if you haven't had it in a while, it hits you really, really hard. So when you realize that there's so many different sources of dopamine, it's like you're getting these little sips of caffeine from like almost every little interaction throughout the day. You become so desensitized to it, and you get in that position where you actually do need more to get the same effect, for the same reason why everyone's opted out of a beautiful like fantasy novel to wind down for the evening. We're watching action movies and people killing each other, and like murder mysteries on Netflix. That's how people wind down. That's where the bar has changed so drastically of the baseline. So the idea of doing the detox is you take away enough of this stuff, you take enough of a break from it, that you get more sensitive to it again, and then you don't need as much. So people will literally come back, and you go on Instagram and you're like, what is this? It looks like like Las Vegas just opened up on my phone, and it's so bright and it's so right. And we want to give people that sensitivity, because I correlate that with like a lucidity, right? It's when you go to the restaurant and then you're like, oh, do you want the dessert? And you're like, yeah, I want that big crazy chocolate cake. And then you take one bite and you're like, this cake is intense. And you actually feel like you don't want it anymore. We want people to be able to make that choice, because just like the foods are so scientifically perfectly designed to be addictive, to have the perfect crunch and flavor profile so that you have to keep having more, et cetera. If they could do that with food, how well can they do that with media and all this digital information? They do it really, really well. So it's giving people the opportunity to have enough space so that you can have a conscious relationship with these things. We have to use our phones, for lack of a better, strategy for now, but it's like being able to have the choice to do it consciously is great. In the same regard that, alcohol exists, psychedelics exist, all these things exist. So we don't want to be bubble boy and live in a world where it's like, I can't do anything, everything's toxic, whatever. but just to have the free will, like to have the lucidity to make the choices, great. You know, I would love to try some 300-year-old whiskey from some, you know, expert, whatever, because it's like, that's cool. Somebody put all this intention into that, but I'm not interested in becoming an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Right. And yet that's like one of the most common default kind of programs running in humanity right now. There's like tens of millions of people who have to drink alcohol every day to be able to feel balanced, just to feel normal. And then you apply that to the pills, you apply that to cannabis, you apply that to media, to all these different things. And again, there's nothing wrong with any of those things, but they can definitely be used in a way that doesn't serve us.
Yeah. You also talk about like 3 major signs that I think you say indicate like a need for a dopamine detox. So you want to elaborate a bit on those, like identifying these signs in our own lives?
Sure. Yeah. There's quite a few, thankfully, which is helpful. I'd say the most common one someone listening to this might realize is when let's say you have some intentions to get your priorities done as far as work goes, or something you have to create or build, and you create your little space to go do that. And you sit down to do the thing that you know you need to do, and there's just no good energy available for that. But there is absolutely, irrevocably energy to do something that sounds more fun or interesting, like just jumping back on your phone, or maybe keeping the TV on, trying to work while the TV's on, and like kind of tricking yourself that. And people can somehow be productive those ways, but it's this trick, and it's still a crutch, right? You're still you're trying to like stimulate yourself into some sort of focus. So that's the first one. It's like, if you have a good track record lately where it's like, you know what you need to get done, and you just sit down and feel kind of blah, and it just makes so much sense that we could just be on the couch on our phone, and that just sounds better. Like, it actually sounds better when you know that's not better, but it actually sounds better. That's the first sign. A similar sign is if you can't go to the bathroom without your phone. That's a fun one. It's a confronting one. And it used to be me I still notice the pull to do that. You know, it's like you literally have to train that out of yourself. It's insane. And I think that's just a good one, because it's like I don't think it'll necessarily change your life, but it's like, I might as well, like, just have some dignity. I don't know. I play around with that one, but
can I jump in this, Nathaniel?
Yeah.
One of our challenges is flush the habit, because 2 million people drop their phones down the toilet a year, and 90% of people take it to the bathroom. And when we told that to people on the street, took this to the streets, it was hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious, because
I bet people said they don't do it, right? Or people said they don't do it when they actually do.
Oh no,
again, it's like I don't know if we said this while we were recording or not, but it's like your screen's like a binky. It's like a pacifier for adults, right? So it's like, you got to bring it to your phone, because I can't just sit there and like be with my own thoughts on the toilet.
Yeah.
That would be horrendous. But the reality is that actually would be for a lot of people. So I have compassion, but like, let's work on that so you don't hate hanging out by yourself, not doing anything.
Yeah, I think we've got to reclaim the sanctity of the toilet break, but also
totally
is like, you're more at risk of hemorrhoids and gastrointestinal issues, because you're extending the time of sitting. Just like, people lose track of how long they're sitting there.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Anyways, keep going.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy, and it's just pretty gross too. Like, if you look at it, anyways, I like to like poke at people with that one a little bit, just because it's fun. Like, oh, you really want to fight me on this one? The third one, I mean, there's quite a few. Third one that I really like, and is a good signifier, is like the ability, you should be able to, on any given day, look out a window, look into your front yard, perhaps see a tree, maybe green grass, maybe just, your home. And you should like enjoy that. There should be a little spark in nature, versus like looking out the window and just being like not being inspired by it, not feeling yourself kind of opening, or feeling a connection there, or coming, or ask, like, if you look outside and it's a nice day out, asking yourself like, why am I not out there? Why am I not doing something out there? And people will go weeks and months where the only time they go outside is to like pick up their DoorDash, on the porch. And it's dangerous, super dangerous. So yeah, those are 3, a little more, close to home examples that I think people can typically resonate with. And then I'd say one more little bonus, because it's just so obvious, is you check your phone, tons of time. Like, look at how many times you pick up your phone. You should be able to see that on there. But just knowing that you kind of carry your phone around to every room so it can sit next to you. Some people just like hang out with it and just hold it like it's a little doll, like it's a little toy, or women who keep it in their bra or in their shirt. And it's like, whoo, it literally says by the people who make it, like, don't have this on your body. And then people, or even close to your body, and then people just have it on there all the time. Yeah. So if you can see the similarities between like a child, like a toddler and their little blankie and your phone, then yeah, you definitely need a dopamine detox. You need to like be outside with a group of people for an entire day and like just remind yourself that you didn't think about your phone once. That's a crazy thing. People, every time I bring this up to people, I was like, when was the last time you like had a whole day, you're out with people, you're camping, you're this or that, and you actually don't think about, you're not like missing Instagram, you're not missing those things. So it's also making sure you keep recalling that so that it can be, still be some neurons that can fight for you, in there, and remembering how good life actually is without all that stuff.
Yeah, I love your analogy about did you call it a binky? I think we call it a comforter in Australia, but it's the
There you
same.
go. Yeah.
Yeah. But like that's exactly how I see it as well, is like, whether it's the screens or the sugary treats or the caffeine or all of those stimulants that you just described, is like,
Yeah.
I think you said it also on your website, it's like that wired and tired state of mind. It's this
Yeah.
constant kind of like, I need the comforts, and the comforts usually don't come with actually being out in the world and participating, but it comes with like these things kind of feel like you've got to really be insular and really quiet and just like all by yourself and all
Yeah.
consuming in a way, I guess.
Yeah.
So I find that really,
Well, it's actually about, you're not removing all this stimulation to be like a monk, right? It's that you're realizing where you can get the stimulation from, right? So it's like how you show up to your day and how you live your life and the kinds of plans you choose to create. You can have very fulfilling, rewarding experiences, and it hits so much deeper. Similar to why pornography can be such an issue, is because because there isn't another person there and you're not like touching someone else's skin, you don't get any oxytocin out of the whole, hormonal experience that you're having. So you keep having essentially a repressed or deficient experience that's trying to mimic a real human experience, and it'll never make up for that.
yeah.
Right. So we start to think that the connection we have, we think we're feeling connected to our friends because they're sending us a funny meme, and we're getting a very similar kind of correlative there as well, right? Where it feels fun, but it's not actually the real thing. It's like a hologram of the real thing. And at some point, we're going to start to notice the effects of how hollow that is, or like how deficient that diet is, for lack of a better, phrasing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Charles Eisenstein, when I interviewed him, he said these are great substitutes, but they're not the real thing.
Yeah.
So we've gotten really good at identifying and engaging so well with substitutes, but the real thing is what we're actually craving. Social media is a substitute for, real, like, an emoji is a substitute for a real hug, so these things, like you just described with pornography as well, is a substitute for real connection. And we've got to come back to the things like words are really important. When I say to people, what's your calling? I don't mean on your phone. I mean inside your body. I mean within yourself. What is it that calls you to do anything? And we've got to reclaim, I guess, a lot of the language that's around the ways in which we behave. Like you said, there are people that are struggling with procrastination and staying focused, in this whole digital distraction age that we've got going on. So I think we've got to look at how to break free from the habits that we feel ourselves aren't serving us. So no one's going to be sitting here telling you what isn't going to serve you. But if you already know what's not serving yourself, or what's capable for you in terms of boosting your productivity, I guess the question is really being honest with ourselves. I mean, how much honesty are we capable? It's radical honesty, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You were just, I'm just shaking my head like yes to all of that.
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's the most direct pathway. And it's also, I think, solves the bigger issue, which is, I think we opt into this sort of like matrix of artifacts and distractions because we're really afraid of essentially taking responsibility, and what we actually find when you don't go on your phone for a whole day, which everyone listening to this, probably nobody's done that in a couple of years, right? Like we just didn't actually do it. It's been a couple of years. So it's like you don't even know who you are anymore. Like this thing has become so integrated and so quickly. I remember the day I downloaded Instagram, and it was my first time having an infinite feed where it's like you get to the bottom and then you can just like load it a little more, boop, and then it just loads up more stuff, and that'll never stop. And I mean, I've built an entire world, an entire life for myself in a business through Instagram, which is amazing. So I'm so grateful for that. But that's also, I don't know if I would have been able to do that if I wasn't privy to these things and made sure to not be following certain accounts or even just building certain habits with how I use that. And there's so much to get out of all this technology too, by actually using it as the tool that it is versus just letting it use us as, impressions for advertisers.
Yeah, that's a really big one. I keep coming back to like productiveness as well, because I think that is essential to living responsibly. And I'll preface this by saying that like I do support anyone's right to do, whatever work they feel is valuable. And I think part of becoming more human is exercising our intelligence towards usefulness. Okay. So these devices, in as much as they're useful, it's taking away from sort of like that human exercise as well. It's almost, there's atrophy involved as well, especially with ChatGPT and things like that. So I want to go into like the productive goals and efforts, I guess, that a lot of people around me, I feel, are sort of these efforts to remain almost like a child forever. And that's not a judgment, by the way.
Yeah.
So I want to talk into that a little bit, because I know that a lot of the dopamines come back to childhood, right? Would that be accurate?
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm sure there's a direct correlation between unfulfilled needs in childhood and our proclivity to go to these really kind of instant gratification, easy forms of seeming love and connection and, whatever, good energy, feeling like we're a part of something, feeling like we can contribute a comment on somebody's thread. It's like all these different needs that can get met. Absolutely. And the more that I, do the work that I do with my clients, seeing people actually get into, their traumas or what's programmed them, the things that are really pulling, the strings behind the curtains, there's a direct correlation on the other side. You start to do the emotional work. You could argue, I really love the term, a teacher, a mentor of mine, Scott Killaby, how he talks about deficiencies. Like the only real deficiency is an emotional deficiency. And that's typically meaning the emotion you're not letting yourself experience. Right. And sometimes when we're kids, it's not that we don't let ourselves experience, it's that it's so overwhelming, we kind of can't. Right. So it's a good strategy then, because you couldn't handle how intense that was. But now that you're an adult, you have different capacity, but we're still holding on to the old strategy. Right. But most people don't even know. It's just like how caffeine doesn't necessarily give you energy as much as it tricks your body into not knowing how tired it actually is. That's why the moment people give up caffeine for the day, they're just exhausted and they need to take a nap.
Yeah.
We don't even realize the thing that we're deficient in or the work we might need to do or where we're avoiding something in ourselves, because we're so caught up into this digital and stimulate, it's the food, it's the environment, it's the activities. It's so stimulating. It has us fighting this proxy war, like in the wrong arena already. Because now we're trying to deal with all this stimulating stuff, and all that stimulating stuff was just an attempt to handle the unresolved stuff. And now we're just trying to handle the stimulation and trying to, what's it called? Like rearranging furniture on the Titanic, right? Where it's just the wrong it's the wrong ship when what we should be is chipping away at the iceberg.
Yeah, well said. But it does make me think of like the feeling of wanting to be liked, that
Sure.
liking
Love
energy.
that.
Yeah. And so why we have all these social medias where you can count how many likes or comments or engagement, like there's like this meticulous ability for our bodies to go, oh, that's popular, or that's a good thing that I said. And so
Yeah.
the refusal to do things because you want to be liked, I mean, where does that even, how do we grow that muscle,
Yeah. So one of the biggest breakthroughs I had with dopamine, and this pairs really well with that form of like energy, that feeling of being liked.
Yeah.
I think there's something similar here. So dopamine is essentially synonymous with progress. So when you're busy making progress, you don't need likes on comments. You don't need digital feedback. So every time we go to our phone to go get affirmed somehow is because we don't feel self-affirmed, because we weren't able to make progress. And that's the only way to feel really self-affirmed, or to acknowledge the progress we've already made and just kind of land in this moment, right? But there's kind of just two ways to do that. And if that's not lining up, which it isn't lining up for most people, because nobody's really off, society is just set up in a way for people to not even know that they can have a purpose or a calling or feel called to do something in particular or be individual. I'm a big fan of individualism. I think that's super significant. And that feeling of wanting, when you brought that up, it's like this kind of open, it's kind of something feels nourished, something feels kind of held or acknowledged. And as someone who's built an entire career, essentially being an online influencer for like, before that was even a word, I was doing that. So I built a very intimate relationship with that, where it's like, yeah, how well my week went to a degree has to do with what kind of comments I got on my YouTube video. But that's because, at least for me, that was the feedback of my calling, like me showing up to do what I felt called to do. So it's like building, if you're just posting on Instagram because you want people to see the new car you bought, or your BBL or whatever you got, like you're wanting to get that kind of affirmation. It's like, it's like this kind of hollow, castle. It's like it's not the place to get that from, ideally. So I mentioned one mentor, another one I'll mention, Michael Tessarion, has a quote. He says, and this might be him quoting someone else, which he does a lot, and he would remember the name, but I don't. He says, the most important psychological, spiritual, philosophical question you can ever ask yourself is, how do I feel about myself right now? And that's the question that you have to sit with on the toilet when you don't bring your phone, right? That's the question that when you're laying in bed and you finally come out of the like theta brainwave state and reality comes back in, right? Who that reality comes back to, who you think that is, and how you feel about them is like, that sets the tone for your day. So if the first thing you do right when you wake up is not even sit with that, and you just look at other people and what they want you to pay attention to, you just missed like the most important opportunity of your day, which is to like have a relationship with yourself and make some decisions about yourself.
I love that you brought up individualism. It's something that I am very much on the same page. I think it's probably, it's very overlooked in our society today. I think collectivism, everyone sort of thinks they're doing something for a greater good, but to do something for the individual and understand how important and why the word selfishness has been hijacked. I'd love to get into that with you, because I know that everything that we're communicating is to tell people to feel into their bodies, to feel into their purpose, into their self-discipline, into their self-esteem. The word self is there intentionally. And I'd love to be able to talk about that with you.
Yeah. I mean, what people are able to experience is the result of essentially like the momentum of yourself, like what you're capable of doing in your life. You can't outrun your, what's the quote? Self-esteem is destiny. You can't outrun who you think you are. And the who you think you are, the aspects of that matter the most, typically have to do with the moments where nobody else knows who you are except for yourself. It's like those moments by yourself. Like, did you wake up early and get all that work done you said you want to get done, or did you sleep in and nobody knew, right? And that doesn't mean you did it right or wrong, but it's a way of how you kind of show up for yourself, and again, the progress you're able to make. When we're so plugged into these, kind of false systems, in a sense, we kind of get that ability to look at ourselves, to be honest with ourselves, to improve ourselves, to make those, judgment calls based on, oh, how did today go? How am I going to set myself up different for tomorrow? Like, we miss all those moments because we fill all these little moments, these in-between moments, with all this stimulation, right? And a lot of that just has to do with the system at large, because it's kind of set up so poor. Like, we could basically feed everybody and take care of everybody, and not from a like, I don't know, socialist perspective, but from like, the system exists for everyone to like be fine, right? But we're so plugged into the system that really, for whatever reason, doesn't want us to get access to that. But then the trick, the inversion of it, and back to like the self-esteem thing, is that the system has convinced us, the victims of it, that we're the reason everything's not working. It's like, we're the bad guys for buying all the fossil fuel stuff, when you're the guys who provided us that, offered us that. You know what I mean? There's not another option. And not to say that even fossil fuels are bad. That's a whole debate. Who knows? But I think every single person has the ability to like access their own kind of hero's journey archetype. And you don't have to be some big world changer. You can change the world by having the best green bean booth at the farmer's market in your town, and be the person everyone's so excited to see every week at the farmer's market. I don't know about you, but those are some of my like the cool. I can think of someone from my hometown who I don't even know their name, but they were just imprinted into my brain of like how a human should interact, with their community. And everybody's robbed of that experience when we don't detox essentially enough from all this stuff to like have a chance to have that deeper conversation, right? Or to realize how, cannabis is a great example just to throw in the mix, because it's such a high dopamine inducing experience. And a lot of people who get off of this, you start to realize that it's such a good example. It basically says weed makes you feel like you've accomplished things when you haven't. And that's what dopamine feels like. When you go on Instagram and you see other people in Bali, other people with their six pack, other people doing their 6-figure launch, other people, right? Your brain can't tell the difference. Just like you watch a scary movie and you feel scared, right? The subconscious doesn't, it speaks in symbols. So if the symbols are there and you're immersed enough, you think that's what's happening to you. So people are trading the opportunity to progress themselves and actually feel better about themselves, because it's so easy to go just soak that up from everybody else. And people are robbing themselves of that experience every day. But I always tell people it takes literally one 24-hour cycle to kind of like have fresh eyes, in a sense. So the practice of that, and again, it's for people listening right now, you take note, like, how many hours do I have for the rest of my day today? Because how I go to sleep tonight is what sets me up, for tomorrow. And it's just and for some people, it's like, oh, I got 6 hours left in my day. Great. Those are the 6 hours you normally every single day just leave to your autopilot. Right. And the last little like fun little science piece that I love playing around with this, and this comes from like people like Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza and stuff, right? They make this great point, the subconscious mind, this thing that runs our whole system, basically the autopilot, it's trying to be as efficient as possible, right? So whatever you did yesterday, if you didn't die, the subconscious goes, hey, you know what? Let's just repeat yesterday's blueprint, because my only job is to make sure this thing doesn't die. So let's just do what we did yesterday. Even though yesterday, what you did was stayed up way too late, ate food you shouldn't have eaten, got into drama you didn't need to get into, stuffed your face, stared at screens, some unmentionables, right? But you didn't die. So it's this 24-hour cycle. That's the only thing we have to change, because it's the only program the subconscious is running. Every single day, you're going to do a wake up thing. You're going to do a breakfast or fasting for breakfast thing. You're going to do there's going to be an outside. Am I going to go to it, or am I going to stay inside? There's only so many things we interact with in this little 24-hour cycle. That's the secret. That's the ticket out, as you start to get obsessed. And this idea of selfishness too is like knowing that you're the only person who's in charge of what you do with that 24-hour gift. And you're the only person who will ever actually be able to change it or do anything with it. So starting to get really curious, and thinking about the compounding effects. I healed an 1.5-inch curvature in my neck, right? Just by choosing that every time I brush my teeth, I practice really good posture. And when I get out of the shower and, dry myself off, I practice like being really aware of my body. And I didn't have to do anything. I just changed how I did things I already do in ways that were essentially effortless, and, save myself from, whatever, a decade of headaches and whatever else it could have been. So connecting a lot of different dots there.
Yes.
People have so much opportunity to make a lot of shifts, because the only thing you're actually changing is how you do your day. And you're just going to get another one of those tomorrow. So you start to realize like you can really master the process of getting out of bed in the morning, or the process of having 4 hours of back-to-back calls, and then you kind of only have 20 minutes and then you have 4 more calls. It's like, well, if that's how your life is set up right now, there's a way to do that better than how you're probably doing it. And a great example to add to this is there's no such thing as taking a break on your phone. Right. So that's what most people do in their day. And that's one of the biggest, like, as far as levers you can pull to start this dopamine reset, is realizing that is like the phone just is the in-between buffer all the time. And the resolution and the learning and the peace we want from life can only come from integration of experience, which means there has to be space. There has to be. Thankfully, we go to sleep, but you have to go to sleep. Your body, you'll just pass out, right? You have to go to sleep every night because you have to have that space, and the total blackout opposite of all the stimulation of life, right? So the more we can kind of sip that yin side of life without filling it with all this other stuff, you just have the opportunity to be a superhuman.
Oh, I love that so much. I felt my inner cheerleader just go her pom-pom going mad. I loved it so much, Nathaniel. Thank you.
That's great. Yeah.
But I think what you have so eloquently described is like that living purposefully. And I mean, if we summed it up, I mean, I can sum it up for what I believe it is. Let me have a good little reflection in just a moment. But it's basically to take action to create value. And I think to live without purpose is to live at the mercy of chance. And I'm not prepared personally to give up my fate and destiny to the unknown, to a savior of a new age miracle thing. That actually for me feels like I'm saying no to purpose, and I need to move my legs. I need to move myself forward. Either I do it or I don't do it. And I'm not making excuses. I just know when I'm doing something, when I'm not doing something, and I'm not waiting for chance encounters without initiative, just whenever, whatever the tide takes me. I'm not interested in being passive. I'm here because I want to be active, and I want to live purposefully, and I want to live with deep purpose in all my actions and my communications. And I think that you've just described that so beautifully. Select your goals. What is it? You want a new business. You want to bring a product into the marketplace. You want to solve a problem. You want to raise a family. You want to earn a living, build a home, sustain your romantic relationship. Whatever it is, we have to be so clear about what goals we're setting ourselves, because like you say, we get caught up in the buffer if we're not really engaged with our own purpose in life.
Yeah. I think people need to start to look at how much if there's one thing I learned, I made this a documentary that went viral on accident. And it took us about 4 weeks of just me and one guy in an office editing this little thing, like just some totally mundane experience that reached 1 billion people. So people don't realize the kind of impact that they can have, especially when you can pour yourself into something that's meaningful, right? I think people don't realize the value of 1 hour. Like something that can, like this interview takes 1 hour, and we might have just totally pivoted somebody's approach to how they use something, and, their health changes, whatever it might be, right? The value of 1 hour is huge. And if you're honest with yourself about how many quality 1 hours you get of true engagement, true embodiment, like fully being available. And, for most people, and I actually did a survey a few years ago, had a couple thousand entrepreneurs go through this, and they were saying they have anywhere from 3 to 6 hours of their day completely taken by distraction, depletion, right? Disassociation, whatever it is, whether that's their screen, it's a bad mood, it's, dealing with the anxiety because they can't sleep well, that, because they haven't like gotten in that rhythm. And if you add that up over a year, right, 3-hour days times 365 days, and you divide that by 24 hours, it's almost a month and a half of time, an entire month and a half that you lost. And if everyone's honest, everyone here listens to podcasts, uses their phone, think about how you've been using your phone for the last 5 years. And even if it's 1 hour a day, right, that's 365 hours a year, right? And you do the math, it's like there's days and days and days that are gone. But most people, it's actually 3 to 5, sometimes up to 8 hours of while you're awake. So I think the 5-hour mark added up over a year, if you divide that just by 8-hour work days, like the amount of time you'd actually like give yourself to work, you've robbed yourself 7.5 months of like the time we plan on being productive. So that's the average person, is essentially half of a year gone by just a normal day of letting your phone, take reign, letting Netflix take reign, letting the video games, whatever it might be. So when you start, I think the real goal is for people to get good at, and this is why I run a men's program. We have this thing called the Beast Code, and it's like teaching people how to attack, like how to have a plan, how to be clear about something and actually go for it and know how good you are at doing that. Right. Like I have to make presentations for my coaching clients, for the programs that I run. And I just decided one day, it's like, I'm going to give myself 45 minutes to just make the whole presentation and see if I can do it. And I did it in about 25 minutes. Right. And it's like, now for the rest of my life, this thing that I normally maybe procrastinate for 2 weeks because, it's going to take so long. It's like, I know that takes 25 minutes. And there's a level of like competency people should be building into, like I said, it's like, how do you influence how you do your morning? It's like, that's a skill. Yeah. Like knowing how to get up, how to not feel groggy as, faster, and all the little things you can do to like optimize how you do your morning, or how you do your, most people 2 to 4 p.m. every day is just completely worthless. They don't do anything, right? They're either in their food coma from lunch, or they just have to take a nap, whatever. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just, again, that's another 2 hours lost out of probably the other, rest of the day. You're not being optimal either. So there's a lot of room for people to improve. You're only needing to improve these 24 hours that you do, right? And these tiny little adjustments can have these huge compounding effects. Just something as simple as giving yourself an hour before you try to go to sleep and get away from the screens. If that's the only thing you change, right? Let the rest of your life, you could be pigging out on your phone all day, and then just at 8 p.m., you put it away, you're going to start to notice something different. But the first thing that you're going to notice is all the stuff you don't let yourself notice all day because you're on your phone. So just fair warning that, true self kind of sovereignty or competence, or choosing to live in like this new paradigm, right, is just pure shadow work, right? Like it's the thing we're all avoiding. It's the thing baked into the whole process. But what's so great is the shadow work that we avoid because our nervous systems are smarter than us. And they go, I can't handle that right now. There's too much crazy shit going on. My life is too crazy. I got way too many open loops, way too much, so the nervous system will let us heal and integrate and handle stuff when we nourish it and equip it to be able to do that. So it's kind of this catch-22, but ideally it's like getting into this pattern we've all found ourselves in, which is the result of not nourishing the nervous system. Yeah. It's like you start to commit to these tiny little levers that you can pull, and you start to plug these leaks, and you start to fill the cup up in a way where you can actually keep what you filled it with and just kind of painting a picture for people to like set that expectation for yourself, right? Hey, I'm gonna try a few different things that I know are going to make a difference. Like every day that I go on a walk is a better day. So I'm just going to commit to the walks. Every day that I, don't look at my phone until after I get some work done, those are better days. It's like, notice those things. If you don't have any things to pull from, go experiment. It's not that hard to go on YouTube and look up, how to have a better energy every day. There's a million resources, but it's about taking those millions of resources and making it like 3 levers you're going to pull this week, and put yourself in that experiment so that you can get the data and notice how you feel, and, keep pulling those levers, keep switching things around, but just keep it simple. Because I think everybody listening to this, especially since I was going to say, like, the advent, the rise of Andrew Huberman. It's like everybody knows all this stuff now. All the hacks, and look at the light in the morning. Everyone knows it all. But what nobody does is gets excited about like designing it, being a script writer of their own life and designing a week where they actually do the hike and the whatever, the yoga class or the creative thing or the time with friends. And it's like you actually build that in. And that's just the missing piece, is the implementation. So I think with the LiVELY app is such a great example of this, where I think more and more people are going to be realizing we have to help people create the experiences necessary to like rewire themselves.
Yeah.
And that's what we try to do with Ritual Reboot. It's like just giving you the actual step-by-step process that's all mapped out for you. It's kind of like, hey, here's the treasure map, but here's also the shovel and the pail and, like every little tool and every piece you would need. Because we kind of got to make it easy, right? Because it's very easy to just keep swiping. So the solution's got to be easy too. And I think LiVELY's from what I've seen so far, is like a really great setup for that, where you're giving people the chance. Like if you want to go stimulate yourself on your phone, like jump on LiVELY and actually go give yourself the opportunity to like feel better because you did something better.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what you said. And it's very much in tune with like making time rather than finding time, right? Because people are like, oh, I don't have the time. I can't find the time. It's like, no, we make time for the things that we know work for us, right? And that we value. And you brought up competency, which I think is so great. I mean, making yourself competent to life. I mean, that's the essence of self-esteem. It's the act of supporting our existence by literally translating our thoughts into reality, and we do that on purpose. So I think what you've just described is, are you conscious of where you want to go, and do you know where that is, and make adjustments accordingly? I mean, that's, for me personally, I think one of the things that I struggle with is I'm often running from my bright side, not from my dark side. The trauma stuff, I can hit that head on. I can be curious about it. I can enter that field. It's not comfortable, but I can go there. But how many people struggle, do have a tolerance for happiness? That's huge right now.
I think I feel like we couldn't even begin to tell how deficient that is.
Yeah.
Because again, we're just getting I can remember the first time I had like real raw local honey, and it's a totally different sugar experience than like a candy bar. Right. And it's like people we're so void of like the real stuff and are settling for these very mediocre replacements. And again, it just reminds me, the point that I always drive, it's the same, it's that progress thing. Like that's the feeling that we're really wanting.
Yeah.
Right. So the thing that makes humans feel the best out of all the different feelings that we can go for is that a sense of, maybe purpose is the right word, right? But it's like purpose is an action, and purpose is like integrated and embedded into your experience around you. It's not just the stuff you're thinking about. It's not just your vision board on Pinterest, right? It's like, and the vision board on Pinterest is a great start, and then turn that into an action plan, something that you want to go do for sure. But yeah, people being able to like be their own source of happiness. And we do need each other. So it's like, to think of how much this stuff gets in the way of our social life, I think is a whole other, podcast we could get into just on that. Right. Especially that, plus paired with the scamdemic and like how everyone's been retrained to socialize. Right. It's like people just do hang out less now. And they're trying to normalize this whole kind of virtual, like, isn't that going to be so cool? You're going to be able to VR your friend across the world. I'm like, I guess that's cool, but it's way cooler to just go see them. Right. It's not like a replacement. It's more of the, yeah, it's not good enough. So it's like, people need to change their standards. And I think people don't realize their standards are so low until you detox, until you give yourself that space.
Oh, that's brilliant. I love that, what you just said. So, Nathaniel, I just want to say, I'm going to ask you for your final words of wisdom, not that you haven't given us pearls throughout this entire interview, but I just want to express my heartfelt gratitude for such an insightful talk. Your words and the wisdom that you share, it's not only inspiring, it's also so valuable in such a fast-paced world that we live in today. And what I admired about this conversation and your ability to stay so present is this, you teach people how to fully, I guess, unplug from the distractions and the overstimulations. And yes, it drains our willpower and our focus, but it's the true treasure. You talked about treasure chest before. It's this pathway to rejuvenation and peak performance. And that's what we all want deep down. We want to feel that rejuvenated peak performance energy. I mean, we're all striving for it, whether we want to admit it or not. And I think your dedication to being able to guide us on that self-improvement and enhancing that, in finding evidence of that, it's so potent in the words that you share, and it aligns so perfectly, with what we're doing here with LiVELY. And that's at the core of what our movement's about, is that real human potential that exists for us all. So thank you. I think I feel really replenished. My energy is amazing after the conversation. It's really boosted my understanding of things as well. But I also do think that, your work is such a testament to that commitment that you have to tapping into the full potential. And I just want to say a huge thank you for everything that you do. It's incredible that you're spreading this message, and it's being so well received. So profound thanks, mate. And if you want to leave our audience with your final words of wisdom, that would be amazing. And then we'll finish up by letting people know where they can find your work.
Great. Thank you that's so sweet. I appreciate all of those reflections. Yeah, it means a lot. I feel like the message that I have for people pairs well with why what you just said means so much to me, because it was when I was in high school and I started learning about all these backward things going on everywhere. I felt compelled to just devote my life to trying to fix all of it. That just made sense to me. I was like, what else could you possibly want to do with your life? So I set myself up on a path for a lot of progress to be made, so I can get some good dopamine for the rest of my life, because I'll never solve every problem, while I'm still here. But the sort of imparting wisdom, so to speak, for everyone is to really just, as soon as you're done with this, go look at yourself in the mirror. And if like you're on your phone too much, you don't need to eat that stuff so late at night, whatever it is, like, just have that first, like, just giggle about it and get excited about the fact that if you're willing to let this be a sort of line in the sand as it could be, it's almost comparable to, like, I don't know, learning about Bitcoin right out the gate when you knew where it would get, which is that there's going to be this bifurcation of humanity, for lack of a better term. And the sooner now you can not become the automatic technology addict and the automatic, instant gratification addict. It's like, give yourself that chance now. If you look at the rate of how fast AI is going, that's already the result of the fact that the last 15 years just happened and nobody noticed. And we're now all literally addicted to these screens. So that's how fast this stuff can change. So go look at yourself in the mirror and just ask yourself, like, am I going to let this get that crazy for me? Or am I going to really get a hold of this now and be a part of, like, a whole new paradigm of thinking? And we're going to figure this all out. We're going to make sure we don't turn into, like, Ready Player One world where everyone's plugged into their VR all the time. But it's definitely going to be an option. So ideally, you can come fight for us on this. Not that it's sides, but you know what I mean? Like, we just someone's got to water the garden, like there's work to be done. So ask yourself if you want to do the work. And if you need help, you have, people like us happy to help you out. And there's a lot of help you can give yourself too. So just take action on it.
So well said, mate. Where can people support your work and find out more about you and what you're doing?
Yeah. You can come hang out with me on Instagram. I love how ironic that is. You can come hang out for a couple minutes, like see something I posted and then get the hell out of there. Right. But again, using that tool is great to connect with all of us. We wouldn't know about each other. So that's great. You can go to my website, nathanielsolace.com. We have ritualreboot.com for the program, masterfulman.com. That's our men's program, which is, again, gets into the unmentionables, but specifically just with men, which is a whole other, kind of flavor of that journey. And guys really need that right now too. So if you're a guy watching, struggling with any of the stuff that we mentioned, that's a great resource for you there. We have a quiz and all kinds of cool stuff you can do. And yeah, nathanielsolace.com basically houses everything else. So that's a good place to check out.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Nathaniel. As I've said, this has been a wonderful interview, and I hope you've all enjoyed it as much as I have. I'll see you on the next episode of Lively Conversations. See you, Nathaniel.
Bye-bye.